Hello everyone and welcome to this week's edition of Man to Man. I'm your host, Hugo Ribatika. This is a show where we have conversations that men should be having, but all too often aren't. And just remember, we leave no man behind. My guest on the show today is Ricky Mashamombe. Ricky, thanks so much for coming onto the show.
It's a pleasure. I'm glad and happy to be here.
Ricky, you have an interesting story, and that's because you've been in the church, in the Catholic Church, for 18 years. In a bit of limbo at the moment, but we're going to get to that. But let's start off with, how did you end up a priest?
Well, I grew up in a Catholic family, from maternal and paternal, and know nothing other than Catholicism. And my dad always told a story that he lived less than a kilometer away from an Anglican school institution in Rusape rural area. The next school was about 7 kilometers away, and as young as he was, at 5 years old, his granddad told him that, "We're not going to that school. We go to our Catholic school." In Roma. It went to extend that. By the time I was mvura, yepa chiboranje Anglican, dem Anglican. Train out to get about maybe 3-4 k's away. That's how it was. And for me, that was the situation. When I was at Ellis Robbins, I wrote a letter to my dad because the time that I was aboard, the time that we knocked off, going for Sunday services, the Methodist has a tailor-made service for Ellis Robbins and Mebring Girls High. And so who would want to go to Catholic school, to Catholic church? You didn't get him a big major. And Methodist had created more like a scripture union on Sunday. So I went there, writing a letter to my dad. I'm happy here, everything is going on well, studies are good. I'm actually going to Methodist, scripture union stuff and all. And his response was a white A4 page. Can I get one wrong? Full stop. And that was the response. That was the response. Came, I read it, it's excitement. When you're a boarder, one of the things that you're excited about, opening mail.
Dude, I know all about that.
Opening mail. So opened the mail, read it. So I thought there's something inside. There's money. I thought it was a joke or something like that, because me and my dad are cool like that. That was the only statement. And then from then I learned. I think I was in Form 3, Form 4. I'm the only one in my family who hadn't gone for catechesis because I was a boarder, and the school that I went to, apart from my brother went to visitation, my sister went to Monte Cassino. So they continued catechesis in their Catholic institutions. I went to government school. Saturdays, it was either soccer, hockey, or rugby. And so I didn't have time for catechesis.
Form 6. So wait, I'm busy.
Rugby. I was a rugby player. Yeah.
You still got that rugby thing going.
Yeah, I was a rugby player. Did try a bit of hockey, but rugby. Then Form 6, A-level, I went to Trust Academy. Were the pioneers of that red uniform. Very interesting moment in my life. But yet still I was a day scholar. But Saturdays were for Town. Yeah, so movies and synergy, the time.
Yeah.
Who would want to go for catechesis?
Marcos.
Yeah, definitely. Who would want to go for catechesis? And so we also started what is called Interact Club. So it pretty much occupied our time. And then the Catholic Church has this thing of when you start your catechetical study, it may be 2 years for you to get confirmed. And if you keep on breaking, they keep on pushing it.
Yeah.
So you'd go this Saturday because you're free, next Saturday because you're free, then you're occupied the next 4 or 5 Saturdays. So it's more or less like you're starting again. So I wasn't into it.
So when did you feel you had the calling, or when did the calling come to you?
2000, the year 2000. I was in just finished A-level. It kicked in hard. Then I didn't have anything that was occupying me. I went for catechesis. I fell in love with the word of the Lord. I fell in love with the teachings. I had this experience that, where were you all this time, oh Lord? Why was I occupying my time with worldly things, and instead I should have pursued you at an earlier age? But nevertheless, now that I've known you, I'll never let you go. So from that time, then I applied to become a diocesan priest. Though I lived with Salesians, which is another strand or brand of priest or congregation. Applied to be a diocesan priest.
Did you have a conversation, Amdara or Namums, at the time to say, I'm not going to give you any grandchildren, I'm going to become a priest.
My mom had died in 1998. Sadly, may God rest her soul. My dad hadn't had a conversation with him. I was actually afraid to tell him. So I went and approached Then I told him a bit. And then I told I can't tell my dad. Not that I'm afraid of him, but I'm not too sure of the outcome. Then as soon as he got in the house, and I was sitting there, my dad said, and I was like, you should have warmed him up a bit. And then my dad was like, Ndangana was one any interest in church of late, in the past year or two. He had grown an interest in the Lord. But unbeknown to him, I also wanted to become a priest. What stopped me from becoming a priest was that in the area that we grew up in, Rusape, he wanted to go to the Marist brothers. Just because of the war, the area was bombed, and so he couldn't pursue it. He was an altar saver. When you're an altar saver, you look up to the priest that you're assisting, and when you're young, you aspire to become that. I'm sure I speak on behalf of maybe 90% of altar savers that at one point in time in their lives, they would have wanted to become priests. For the story, my grade 4 teacher at Belvedere Primary, when we were doing career day, I had forgotten about it, but she came on my day of ordination. She said that I'm not surprised because when I was speaking about career days, he said he wanted to be a priest, and I loved in my heart that he doesn't even know what he's talking about. But that was the scenario there.
But so there's a huge sacrifice that you have to make, and you were 18, 19
yes.
at the time that you decided. So let's talk about the first few years of you being in the seminary, because that's where you learn to become a priest. What was that experience like?
First year seminary in Mazoe, it's a spiritual year. It's a place where you are removed from the world. It's a place that helps you to discern the word of the Lord. Are you calling yourself? Has God called you? What are you thinking about? Do you really want to become a priest? When I was there, it was largely on human formation, which means that you look into yourself, who you are, where you're coming from, the faults that you've made, and really what you want to become. Though it's spiritual, but you center most on who you are. That's year one. Then the next 3 years, interestingly, were philosophy. So you get immersed into the love and the word of God, and then you are plunged out of it so that you really get rid of anything that makes you think that this is spiritual or religious. Philosophy is a handmaid of theology, but philosophy helps you to understand, to really think critically, to go to the reason why you want to become a priest. Why do you want to work for the Lord? Why do you particularly want to become this type of a priest? Because there are many.
Ricky Mashaya Mombe on Man to Man, 18 years in the Catholic Church. When we come back, we'll talk about what transpired and why he's in limbo. Don't go away. Thank you for staying with us. You're watching Man to Man. I'm Hugo Ribatika. On the show with me today is Ricky Mashaya Mombe. Ricky, 18 years in the Catholic Church. So let's talk about you being ordained as a priest. The first few years, where did you serve? Those experiences, the many people that you met, the flock that you shepherded.
My first assignment, apart from the seminary years, where I would go for, I worked in Wedzam, Binduram, different areas. The year that I was ordained a deacon, I was coming from Sanyat, and which is in the deep, I call it the deep end of our diocese. The place where we lived in St. Joseph had about 15 faithfuls. That was out to Seguru Nambuya Mshuku. Teacher Wapa, Poya Dumeni. The rest on Wadiki. So when I got there, you're coming from the seminary, you're so eager to preach. I said to myself, I'll just go and read the Bible and just say, I'm much to Namari. Keep doing what you're doing. But I felt God telling me that don't underestimate rural people. The ones that are there, they're there for a reason. Preach as if you're preaching in a stadium. And I'll tell you, I used to preach loud. That after the sermon, the priest I was with, Father Mcho says, also not on your. And I was like, I felt something that I should not undermine them. The next biggest outstation was Nimo, at about 50, 60 people. I enjoyed working there. It was a blistering hot place. It was my first time living in Sanyati, Ada, Gokwe area. It was very hot. And I got there, true story, there were two priests that were there, Father Kanyam and Father Mchoza. And I got there now, waiting to become a ordained deacon. I got there, they didn't have the facilities to accommodate 3 people, the finances and the resources. I slept on the floor for a good 6 months. I enjoyed it. I embraced it. It taught me something. The year that I spent in Mazoe, the human formation and spiritual year, it told me to live in any environment, to live anyhow with anybody. Now I'm faced with a pastoral situation. I embraced it. That was the first year. I was ordained on the 13th of August 2023 to become a Catholic priest in Marondera. My first assignment was also in Marondera. So Marondera is under the Archdiocese of Harare.
Which year?
2013. I went to All Souls Mutoko. It became my forte of experience. I loved it. Very hot place too, very hot. First time I became a school chaplain. It's a co-ed school. I was trying to understand how young people think, resonate with my years. Now I learned it at all boys school. I learned at a school where at almost every break time there's a fight. I learned at a boys school where almost anything is said out loud. Now I'm looking at these youngsters. I'm now their parent, so to speak. They've got problems, they come to me. They're students. They'll have relationship issues. They will have boys issues, girls issues. And there were people from my hood, people from my church, people I've worked with, those who are close to me. So I had to consolidate it all and become their father. That was my first experience. Add on to that, I was also ministering in a rural environment. I went to Mshimbo, I went to Nyamapanda. I was all over, and that's the largest mission in Zimbabwe. It had about 130 outstations. And I'll say if it's in Zimbabwe, then best be known that it's probably in the SADC region. I remember one day I said, 6 masses. It's not supposed to be like that. Wow. The moment I woke up, I was supposed to say a mass for the orphanage, with the orphanage there. It was on a Saturday. I had another 2 masses to make it standard. There was a case with the hospital, because it's a hospital, and the mission superior had to go and represent the institution. So he had already been booked for 2 masses. I had to take them up as well. Then there was a child who had died at Mtema Mountain. Saturday, we couldn't celebrate funeral mass on a Sunday. I had to do the last mass, the 6th one, that late. Came home, I was so drenched, I was so tired. But everything I did it for the Lord. I didn't ask for any penny. I grew up in an environment where we esteemed to become businessmen. I grew up in an environment where we wanted to become the who's who. In our society, growing up in Warren Park, you study to become somebody. And here I find myself, when I went for mass in some stations, if they would have given me more than $5 would thank the Lord. They would take one place which touched me and became something that I cherish today. Packet sugar, manga mine chibage, chanchaka sungwa ni gavi. Ma mine box matches. This is offertory. Ma mine sipo ye green bar yagademburwa ni pakati yenga irimo. Manga mine tunzungu, manga mine tu nyimo tonga turimo. The whole thing didn't consolidate more than a plastic bag. But I went home with great joy. I said, this was given by the people who are poor, but they are sincere in their heart. They don't have much, but they've parted with what they have had. And to me, these were lessons that God was speaking to me, that it's not about the money, it's about the heart of the people. And from that moment onwards, I was stuck onto it. Mutoko also became a place where I started to do evangelization on social media, largely on WhatsApp. I listened to this Zambian priest who was preaching on WhatsApp. And WhatsApp was now kicking. I think the initial group had 205 people in a group, then went to 50. And I challenged myself, I said, I think I can do this. So I started sending a message to the group boys in my hood. We call ourselves Sacred Heart Boys because I sent in a word. It was just about 1 minute. The next day I couldn't. Also, Mutoke has a problem with network connectivity. One of my friends then said, that's not kind of word. So the theme became Chaba Kuburwa. I started doing it religiously. It was painful because I had to prepare the word for about 2 hours. A sermon that I would say for 10 minutes. Now, it's different from the people that you are congregating with. This one, you don't know who's going to listen to it. This one's going to listen, my professors are going to listen to this. My lecturers are going to listen to this. Perhaps the bishop is going to listen to this. Perhaps people outside the country will listen to this. So I have to do the most I can. So I was sleeping late and looking into sermon, making it critical. And I was always a perfectionist in my sermons. I told myself that even if I have got 4 masses, I would go 3 masses on a Sunday. Each community has a different sermon. I too am a participant in that sermon. As people say, because I didn't know what the Holy Spirit had prepared for me. So it's something that happened. I encountered a snake, a cobra, because when you're at All Souls, where there is a booster, there are some steps that you go there. And when you're there, you have to, that's where the network was a bit easier. So about 11 p.m., because 10 p.m. it would still be congested. So I would wait till I'm preparing, 11, 12 I'm preparing. Now I have to rush up there and send and then come down and then sleep. But because by 6 o'clock I have to be up for mass and stuff now. I felt some spat on my hand. So I thought it was raining. Then I had a hiss. Then I looked up about 1.5 meters. There was a cobra, full blown, I think it's an African cobra. Then I looked at it. I bolted going back. And I said, I'm never going to go back again. That's actually.
All right, I'm going to ask you to hold that thought.
Yeah.
When we come back, Ricky, we want to talk about your fall from grace, for want of a better description. And obviously we'll continue that conversation around that spitting African cobra that Ricky Mashayamombe encountered. You're watching Man to Man. We'll be back in a moment. Thank you for staying with us. We have in studio Ricky Mashayamombe, man who's been with the Catholic Church for 18 years. Just before we went on the break, you were talking us through that situation where a cobra spat on you, and you thought you might have been bitten.
I thought I'm gone. I've always had snake phobia. I thought I'm dead, and I bolted to the nearby. It's a mission, so it has a hospital there. Woke up, Dr. Magani, who is the hospital mission superior, told him my experience. He was just laughing, washed my hand, tried to inspect and said, I don't see any incision there. I think he just spat on you. Just wash yourself, go home. And I kept on saying, did the venom get in? He said, no, our human skin, no, it doesn't allow the venom to get in if there isn't any cut. Do I need any pills because I think I'm feeling dizzy? No, it's because you ran and you came here and you're worried about that. But from that experience, I learned something. I learned that for the word of the Lord, I have to suffer. And the hurdles that I'll meet in my life. I didn't know this then. It was just an experience. It took me 2 days before I even posted the word because I was afraid to go back there. The next day, we went with the groundsman to search if at all there is anything of that nature. There wasn't anything. It's a mountainous, it's a hilly area. You are bound to meet snakes. This is going to happen.
Absolutely.
So yeah.
Ricky, you've had a fallout from the Catholic Church, and that's impacted your life in the last 2 years. Just walk us through what transpired.
I left Mtoko when I was made Director of Communication for the Archdiocese of Harare. With that post, I worked hard. I became Director of Digital Media in Africa.
For the Catholic Church? For
the Catholic Church in Africa. A board with 8 of us, with all African countries. I became the first Director of Radio Maria, the first Catholic radio station in Zimbabwe. With all these experiences, I had, at a young age, one of the most prestigious and large parishes in Zimbabwe. Pride got to my head. Not only pride, I lost my guard. I never beat my chest that I'm the best, but I think in terms of prayer, in terms of humility, personal humility, in terms of allowing God to listen to His word, I lost it. I thought I had gotten there. The devil took the best of me. It's a wrecking ball that kept on hammering. I grew up in an area where, as I stated, to be the best of everything. Now I think I'm on a pedestal where I see almost everything from where I am. And yes, there were beautiful roses here and there. And my personal fallout came from the fact that I allowed myself to indulge into that. And it got me in a situation where I sit with it was like I was blinded, only to wake up and see the bishop is there and I'm here. And he's narrating a litany of things that I had done. And he said to me, we sat down and he said to me, look, what do we do here? I cried in that office. I couldn't believe that it had come to this. I couldn't believe that I had done this. I couldn't believe that I had become so weak. And I couldn't believe that I had become so vulnerable. And I said, allow me to go home, to reflect on this, to think critically on my life. And then I'll come back to you.
So
and that's what he wrote, and that's what he promulgated from the time.
So let's look at this practically.
Yeah.
Right. You're a Catholic priest. You get involved with women or a woman, but you're this young man, right? You're not typical of most priests that you'd come into, or certainly not the priest that I came into contact with, right? I mean, I wouldn't look at any of those priests and think, you know what, this guy shouldn't have been a priest because, he's good looking, he played rugby and all of that, right? So you're a good looking guy, you played rugby, you're fit. It's bound to happen that women will find you attractive, even if you are a Catholic priest. What are the lessons that are learned from that experience?
Many lessons, Hugo. I felt that the training did not prepare us much for what happens in the field. Our training was within cloisters. We would strengthen one another because of our pastoral experiences. But we never really had much on what really transpires in the field. For some of us, it was a shock. I remember when one seminarian came to me and said, there's this woman who came to me, we were young then, and said to me, you're adorable, I would want to be with you in that sense. What did you do? I was stunned. I didn't even know how to respond. And it got us thinking. Our minds were fixated on serving the Lord, but not much on how we serve Him in the field, how we meet these experiences. These experiences, we find them on the job kind of things. It left us very vulnerable. There are so many of my brother priests who are going perhaps in a similar situation, and they don't know how to deal with it. It's hard, as you stated, that I have sacrificed my life to be this person who is a father. And this is now happening to me. There's no joy in it, because that's what brings joy in our lives. What brings joy in my life is finding that plastic with grains and broken bar of soap. And now this is now happening. It may entice you a bit because we are also human. That's also another part that was not much dealt with. It's a lesson that I then learned, that apart from me being a priest, wearing the vestments and standing before the altar, I am a human person.
You're still a man.
I'm a full-blown man. People would ask me, were you medicated when you become a priest? Not at all. Was there any type of food injection that was given to you so that you bypass women? Not at all. In fact, if they know that perhaps you've castrated yourself, you not be ordained a priest because they want you in your full human capacity. But the world is changing. In our world, environment is changing. And I don't want to lie, speaking on my behalf, it got the best of me. And the lesson that I got from there is remain humble, remain low. I have got no problem with the Catholic Church. I would not think that that doctrine should be changed. But I should think that there's more lessons that should be given to men who would want to become priests. It's a noble and a beautiful calling. If I'm to die and come back again, and if God is asking me, would you want to be a priest? I would say, yes, I'll give it another shot. Perhaps this time I'm much more vigilant. But this time I'm much more awoke as to regards to what's happening. Sadly, you will only be awake when a fall has happened. Now I had my share of a fall.
Ricky Mashaya Mumbe, Booster Ramwari, speaking to us on Man to Man. Absolutely incredible conversations. And those are sort of conversations that we have on the show, conversations that men should be having, but all too often aren't. I'm your host, Hugo Ribatika. Look forward to the pleasure of your company at the very same time next week. Remember, leave no man behind.